My name is Alex Caserta, and I come from an Italian heritage where food is given a high priority. This show provides the inside stories of the individuals in the food production industry and how they are producing food using an artisanal approach and innovative techniques. The entrepreneurs of the food industry will provide insights into food production, nutritional value, and the farm-to-table movement. Okay, I'm with Mark Federico at Narragansett Creamery. Mark, you're the owner. We are at the Asiago vat, and they are getting ready to cut the cheese.
Okay, so in this process, we've already pasteurized the milk, we've added our cultures and our enzymes, and we let the vat set. We added our enzymes to coagulate the milk, and what that did was it turned the milk into a solid. And right now, we are what we call cutting the curds with our harp knives.
Okay, and now, this is like a jello right now.
Right now it's like a vat of jello, milk jello.
All right.
So we take these wire harp knives. These are 1/4-inch knives, smaller knives, because as you said, we're making a vat of Asiago, which is a hard cheese. So the point of this process is to cut, and you'll see that one harp knife is horizontal and one is vertical.
Yes.
And we just switched the knives.
Just switch them, yep.
And the reason for that is when we're done, we're going to have little kernels of curds. And then we're going to allow the curds to heal. And that means we're going to let them sit for about 5 minutes so a little skin forms around the outside of the curd. And then we will begin our stirring and cooking process. If we don't wait for that 5 minutes, we will lose a lot of butter fat and a lot of protein into the whey. But as you can see now, you're cutting it
different direction.
In a different direction, and you can see the kernels.
You can see the top changing.
Right. You can see that change in the top is the beginning of the process of separating the curds and the whey. It's the process of expelling whey from the curds, from the cheese curds.
Yeah. Now the yellow on the top, is that the buttermilk fat that I'm looking at?
That's whey.
Whey.
That's the whey. You know, we started with milk, a liquid. We turned it into a solid, and now we're cutting the curds so that we can get a liquid again called whey and a solid called cheese curds.
Okay.
So we will eventually pump the whey into a holding tank and send it over to our ricotta room, where we will make an institutional ricotta out of that whey.
Okay.
You know, the Italians were, you know, as all European countries, were very sustainable in the early days. They didn't waste anything.
Right.
So you took the milk, you made curds in whey, you took the whey, they reheated the whey, added an acid to it, and they made ricotta. Ricotta in Italian means recooked.
Recooked.
So it's, you know, sustainable, getting all the protein and all the butter fat, all the goodness out of everything we started with.
Okay, and you have 3 tanks or 3 vats set up in this room. What do you call this room?
The coagulation room.
Coagulation.
It's our vat room, coagulation room, because here's where it all starts. Aside from, you know, the milk coming in, which we'll talk about, the milk coming in and testing the milk, and then we pasteurize the milk, and then we pump the milk into the vats, and depending upon what type of cheese we're making, determines what type of cultures and enzymes we use. And the process of cheese making is really, you need a couple of things. You need heat and you need acid. So you all know you could buy a gallon of milk and keep it in your refrigerator for a month. Eventually it'll coagulate on its own. Why? Because it began to acidify. It began to ferment the sugars. We take fresh milk I mean, the milk that we used this morning was in the cow yesterday. We get fresh milk from local farms delivered to us last night and 6 o'clock this morning, and that's the milk we're using to make cheese today. So it's really fresh. So what we do, all of our cheeses here are made from pasteurized milk. So we pasteurize our milk, then we bring it into the vat, and then we add our cultures and enzymes, which will create the acid. The cultures are good bacteria that ferment the sugars, the lactose in the milk, and create a lactic acid. And so you need that acid, and then we raise the temperature, and that makes the cheese coagulate.
What type of temperature are we talking about?
Well, we're talking about 90 degrees Fahrenheit when we set the milk. Our pasteurizer heats the milk. We have a high temperature short time, which means that our pasteurizer heats the milk at least 161 degrees, holds it for at least 15 seconds, which ours we hold it more, and then returns it to the pasteurizer to cool down, and then it's brought into the vat. Okay,
now even though we have Asiago in this vat, the other two vats you were producing what type of cheese?
Mozzarella.
Mozzarella.
Yeah, so those are going to be fresh mozzarella curd. So as the curds are separated from the whey, they're going to be put into forms, and then they're going to be brought over to our cooker stretcher, our mozzarella room, where we'll be transforming the mozzarella curd into fresh mozzarella.
Okay.
The difference is right now it's just a curd, and then when we put it in our cooker stretcher, it'll cook the curds again and stretch it into that nice elastic.
Okay, and this machine, this device, is bringing the substance up from the bottom up to the top to keep it all evenly distributed.
Right, and to make sure that we are stirring all of the curds. Now, different cheeses require different temperatures. The fresh mozzarella, we're not going to cook it to a high temperature because we want to retain some of the moisture. This Asiago, a harder cheese, we're going to be at a certain point on the make procedure, we're going to be raising the temperature of this vat, because what that will help do, that will help to expel more whey from the curds so that we can get more drier kernels of curd.
Okay. Narragansett Creamery started in 2007 when Mark and Patty Federico decided to launch an artisanal brand under their umbrella company called Providence Specialty Products. Mark Federico started working in his grandparents' grocery store in the 1940s as a boy. They owned People's Market in New Haven, Connecticut, considered the city's first supermarket. I'm in the conference room with Patty Federico, you are Mark's wife and co-owner of Narragansett Creamery. You handle some of the things that are on a different area, in a different area compared to what your husband does. I want to get some of the background information from you. I know that you and your husband met in a small grocery store in New Haven, Connecticut a few years back, right? And you've been married, what, 45 years?
45 years in September. That's
so
right.
Mark was working there, and did you work there for a while also?
I did not work there,
Okay.
but our families, our grandparents actually were neighbors in Italy. We came from the Campania region, and then when they happened to settle together in New Haven, so they reunited again and kept up the friendship, and so our families did know each other.
And what was the name of that market?
That was People's Market.
People's Market.
His grandparents started, actually it was his grandmother, along with the grandfather, but they started People's Market in New Haven. It was the first supermarket in New Haven. And I know my husband tells me the story. He was, I don't know, maybe 5 or 6.
Yeah.
And they would pull the the cans over to him, and he would stamp them.
'em
And by
the
the time
price.
that he would put them up, it was time for the next. But so he kind of got indoctrinated very early into the business life of his grandparents.
And that's where the neighborhood will go and do all their shopping for the meats and the fish and the fruits and vegetables.
That's
And
correct.
it's a great place to meet the local community and offer them high quality products.
I mean, in those days and today as well, your customers become your family because you get to know them
Yes.
on a personal level. You get to see their children, then you get to see them grow. And it's a beautiful exchange, a beautiful friendship that you also develop. And you develop a trust also, which is, I think, so important when you're dealing with in the food industry, to develop that trust with your customers, that they're getting the best products, the freshest. And I think it's beautiful.
All right, Mark, what room are we in now?
We're in the regatta room.
We'll go at that room.
And
All
here
right.
we're making our Narragansett Creamery Renaissance Regatta.
Okay.
We filled the vat with our fresh whole milk, 100% pure whole milk, and we cooked it up, acidified it, and now the milk protein and the whey proteins are coming to the top, and now all the proteins have come to the top, and we're ready to hand dip our regatta. So, Jacob, you want to show Alex what we're going to do? Okay. Oh, beautiful. Okay. Alex, go ahead. You could gently dip it and keep. Okay. So the difference with our Narragansett Creamery whole milk Renaissance Regatta is that we are using 100% whole milk. A typical regatta, in the dairy case, is made from whey, as I described earlier, adding butter fat. But in order for the proteins of the milk and the butter fat to combine, they needed to add a stabilizer.
All right, now,
We don't do that.
what is the temperature of this right now?
The temperature of this is about 165 or 185 degrees.
Okay, and the sweetness that I'm smelling?
That's the pure milk.
Pure milk,
That's
okay.
the milk. That's the milk sweetness.
Smells sweet when it's heated up.
Yes.
Most people are not used to smelling that.
So we're gentle. As we put the scoop into the vat, we're gentle so that we don't hit it and drop the curds down to the bottom. So we're trying to scoop as much off the top as we can.
Okay.
And as I said, this cheese is so delicate. We won the world championship at the Wisconsin Cheesemakers Association for this whole milk regatta. And there were companies from all over the world in Wisconsin.
That's
that day.
fantastic.
So I was very proud of
Yes.
our company, very proud of the state of Rhode Island and the farmers who make this beautiful milk that we could make beautiful cheese.
And the cows who did their part.
And the cows did their part, and the farmers do their part.
This looks wonderful.
But as you can see, it's a labor-intensive
Very intensive. Yep.
process. Jacob is our regatta maker. Jacob has been making regatta for how many years, Jacob? 16 years.
16 years. Wow.
16 years. We're family here
Yes.
at the creamery. We're proud of that. We're a small, family-owned creamery.
And that's what I like about the fact that you're small, and many times with small production comes quality.
Well, we care. You know, the people here care.
Yep.
You know, Jacob's been here 16 years. Ronald's been here 20 years. You know, it's just, it's family. We make it family.
And I think one of the unusual things is your husband became an accountant and then came home one day and said to you, what?
I want to change.
You want to change
I
and I want to what? Do what?
He said, I want to get back to my roots because his mother and father also operated a fresh fruit and vegetable market in New Haven. And I find it interesting today to go in the supermarkets to see the signs saying where the vegetables or the fruits came from.
Oh, yeah.
Well, my husband used to meet the farmers in the back of the store, and what do you have for me today? And they say, well, we have these beautiful string beans or whatever it happened to be. And so then he would take them and put them out and put down what farm he received those vegetables from. They were just picked this morning. And so I think he wanted to go back to that.
Go back to your roots. And that helped establish for what you're doing now, because he left the accounting business to make cheese.
Yes, he did. He wanted to file. He said, if I don't do this now, I'll never do it. And I said to him, I don't want you to have a regret. When we first launched Narragansett Creamery, not that many people knew who we were, so we decided, well, we started doing a lot of events, local events. We did a lot of charity events as well. And then we did farmers markets. And we started to build up our clientele through the farmers markets. And gradually, the name started to get recognized. But even then it was difficult to get into some of the stores because in the farmers markets they knew us, but the larger stores were a little hesitant because they didn't know much about us. But through the farmers markets and talking and building that clientele, and then when the market would end, they would say, well, where do we go now?
To get it?
Where do we go? I would say, well, where do you shop? And they would tell me, and I would give them the literature and say, bring
do
this
the job.
Do the job. I say, you have the voice. You have the voice
It's
to
true.
make the change. We've done our part, but now you're the voice to make that change. And they did.
Hey, Mark, what are we looking at now?
Okay, Alex, here we're making our handmade burrata. Burrata originated in the Apulia region of Italy. And again, we talk about sustainability. As the cheesemaker made the mozzarella and stretched it, they always had little pieces of cheese left over. So not to waste those pieces of cheese, they ripped the cheeses apart, added cream to it, a dash of salt, and then used that as a filling for this burrata. So what we do is we make a pocket of, you'll watch her make a pocket of mozzarella. She stretches it open, and then she's going to add the stracciatella in it, and she'll close it while it's nice and hot. Close it nicely, and add it and cool it down in water.
A beautiful homemade product.
Beautiful homemade product that we make every day here in Narragansett Creamery.
What I love is this is all done by hand.
All done by hand. Yes. There are filling machines that you could use. The problem with the filling machines, sometimes you'll get too much liquid, not enough of the stretched mozzarella, and it's never consistent. We try to keep it very consistent. We make our stracciatella by hand, and then we form by hand.
Now, stracciatella is in the bucket.
Stracciatella is in the bucket, which is ripped stracciare, to rip the mozzarella. We rip the mozzarella, we add cream to it, and that's our filling.
My goodness.
Yes.
Talk about a wholesome product.
Oh yeah, delicious. So many of our local restaurants carry the product. Now that's, there's a trick to making this, because obviously, as you can see, the curd, the mozzarella, the stretched mozzarella is pretty hot.
Yeah.
So you have to work quickly, your hands in the water and out of the water.
I'm here in the conference room with Mark Jr. Mark, what are the things that you handle in the operation?
I do a little bit of everything. I help procure the milk to produce all our cheese, some of the ingredients. I also manage a lot of the retail and food service customer sales at the creamery, and also help manage some of our social media and Instagram accounts.
All very important, especially in today's world. Now, I'm assuming that you would also deal with restaurants and chefs?
Yes. You spoke to my mom earlier, and she mentioned how we started as a company, just doing farmers markets, special events, tastings. And when we started that about 10 years ago, it started right at the same time as the local food movement and farm to table. And so a lot of chefs were also visiting farmers markets, getting local produce and local cheeses. And so not only did that help grow the retail side of our business, but also the food service side. So we started getting calls from certain chefs and demanding our products and our brand. And little by little that has grown, and that's why we continue to do special events and farmers markets, because it's a winning strategy. And in fact, we had a chef here about 2 weeks ago. We gave him some samples, and he's opening up a new restaurant. He used to work at in Boston and started opening his own restaurant and demanded our products from a customer that wasn't carrying our products before. So it's opened up new avenues for our business.
Mark, what room are we in now?
We're in our lab. We're not a certified lab, but we created our own lab so that we can do some testing. The first thing that we do is all of our incoming milk is tested. Number one is tested for antibiotics. We cannot accept a load of milk that's tainted with antibiotics. And that can happen on a farm. An animal is sick. They gave the cow antibiotics. The cow somehow moved back into the milking parlor instead of being separated. Usually they're tagged and separated, but it could happen. And if that cow gives milk and it's included in our shipment, we can detect it. So we do this antibiotic test, and it'll give us a printout when we're done. So now he has heated the sample, and he's going to put it into the snap test. And when he's ready, he will initiate the test. The second thing we do, and we'll show you, is we test the milk for its components. Now, because we're buying milk right off the farm from various local small family farms, we're very fortunate in where we are here, because we're buying milk from small local family farms.
Supporting the local farmer.
They're not big conglomerate farms. They're small local farms who work hard to treat their cows well. So every day the milk could come in a little bit different. So we need to know how much butterfat, how much protein is in the milk, so we can standardize and standardize our production. Okay, so at this point now, the milk, we received the milk. We tested the milk for antibiotics. It tested negative, so it's okay to bring the milk in. Now we're going to test the milk for its components to determine the butterfat and the protein. So we took the milk sample and put it into our lab equipment, MilkoScan, and it's going to analyze what we have. We pay the farmer, we pay the cooperatives by the component of the milk. We don't pay by gallons of milk. If the farmers treat the cows well, which they do, and they feed the cows well, the cows will produce better milk, high protein, higher quality, high protein, high butterfat. We pay more for that milk, but the farmer gets more money for that milk. So it's a win-win situation. It's a good system. And now I can see that we have 3.88% butterfat, and the protein is 3.119, and total solids 12.53. So we know our standard for receiving milk is about 3.5%. So we're well above. It's a good quality milk, almost 4%, 3.9% in that load of milk. So
now, when you produce a cheese and it has more butter fat in it, will that be a heavier cheese?
Well, what happens, as I said, there's only a certain amount of butterfat that cheese is going to absorb, certain protein to butterfat ratio. The rest of it is going to be left into that whey. And if we were to dispose of that whey, we'd be losing a valuable commodity, that butterfat. But we don't dispose of it. that's the way we pump over to the regatta room, and we make our
Everything's
in the
used.
large flocculators.
Yeah.
We make our institutional regatta, and so that butterfat is recaptured, and that institutional regatta is sold to pasta manufacturers who make raviolis and stuffed shells. Right now, Caitlin is going to test some of our finished product, which today we're going to test some of the mozzarella curd. Now, the purpose of this testing is to have some consistency in the specifications that our customer is looking for, and the product that we're going to make. So we want to know that our fresh mozzarella ball is going to come out nice and fluffy. So we want to make sure that the moisture content is correct, the salt content is correct, and the total protein is correct. So we test our product to make sure that we're keeping on a standard and that we're consistent.
It's amazing how much science goes into this that people just don't know about.
And cheese making is an art and a science.
Without a doubt.
So I knew the art of the cheese making process, but if you want to be consistent and you want to know why certain things happen, you should know some of the technology and some of the science behind it.
We have such a high number of quality restaurants and quality chefs. The vast majority of different nationalities that we have in Rhode Island, they all add to the food scene. A lot of recipes that came over with people from other countries all add to that food scene. And many of them will use cheese products. So, I mean, you couldn't be in a better location when it comes to producing cheese.
Absolutely, and also having the universities right here in Providence,
Yeah.
Brown, RISD, Johnson and Wales.
Johnson and Wales, yeah.
In fact, it's a lot of the young chefs that have matriculate there. Sometimes my parents will do cheese making short, 1 day or 2 day cheese making class for regatta or yogurt. And so it's kind of that introduction to them and who we are, and getting them passionate about the local food movement. And then eventually they're going to be working at restaurants here in Providence or all over the country.
And that relationship will develop as time goes on.
Sure.
I notice a lot of people are coming in from other parts of the country to open up restaurants here or to open up a food business, and we've become very popular when it comes to being a foodie state, which is a nice thing.
Absolutely, we're very proud to be part of that here in Providence.
Yeah, Mark, thanks so much for your time today. Really appreciate it, and it's been great talking with you.
You as well. Thanks for coming.
Okay, thanks.